So this is the close of this channel. I believe that the political purpose of Not Your Beau has been completed to educate the public on the issues facing the 2020 campaign. We can see here Anita Dunn, longtime Obama-Biden aide, said the pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to Joe Biden. And this was the Democrat attitude throughout 2020, to use a nonpartisan virus to achieve political power. Democrats worship power and the money that comes with that power. Anyone who believed that Joe Biden had a plan for battling coronavirus, for distributing vaccines, you're learning now that you completely wasted your vote, and you were lied to by Joe Biden and the people pushing his campaign. But how many times do I have to repeat that? Biden's own team admits that they had no plans and no amazing alternatives to what Donald Trump and the CDC were already doing. And they're going to continue campaigning as if they're still on the campaign trail, attempting to win an argument with a defeated ex-president. But what I'd like you to think about here as I close this channel down are things that matter to you and your families. One of the perennial issues in America is, what's the size of your classroom? Now, you may think that the election of Joe Biden and things like having an open border with Mexico have nothing to do with your classroom size. But in fact, this directly determines your classroom size. If we open up the southern border with Mexico and South and Central American refugees, be they COVID refugees, climate refugees, or economic refugees, if you flood America with whole families by the thousands from Central America, what does that mean in terms of your child's education? One of the things that voters show up for every election is an issue over whether the classroom size in a public school has 20 students per teacher, 25 students per teacher, 30 students per teacher. This is understandable by everyone. And yet, flooding the country with immigrants, what if you have 50 children per classroom, 100 children per classroom, all of them speaking different dialects and languages? That is the real effect of voting for Joe Biden. That is the real effect of putting the Democratic Party in charge of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. If you want your child to get an American education these days, you're probably going to have to go back to the late Rush Limbaugh's Rush Revere series of children's books. These books teach your child history in a fun and engaging manner. And I'm just reading one of his books, Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims, and I'm struck by how interesting it was and how well edited it was. Now that Rush Limbaugh is no longer with us, I can't send him an email and thank him for the quality of his writing. So I'm mentioning this here. The series was edited by his wife, Catherine Limbaugh. And if you want your child to learn American history, you're going to have to go to it with Rush Revere and educate your child yourself. Because as you can see here, our modern education system is hopelessly crippled by communist and Marxist academics who have no other agenda other than indoctrinating your children, brainwashing your children to whatever the latest socialist, progressive, woke movement is. This is where your tax dollars are being spent. Are your tax dollars being spent wisely? And if anything we could leave as a legacy of Donald Trump's single term, as of 2020, is that he worked every day to guard your money. None of this money that liberal Marxists, Democrat progressives, socialist leftists, none of this money that they're throwing around on their pet causes is their money. They stole this money from American taxpayers, and they use this money to then lecture us on how our country is racist and sexist and bigoted and so forth. So they took your own money and they use it to slap you around with it. Are you going to let the Democrats get away with this. And you have this choice every election. Now, I just wanted to give a brief note here on how Republicans need to move on away from election challenges from the 2020 election. If this is your focus in life, look at this article here. You might want to reconsider this. Judge rules Maricopa County must provide 2020 ballots to Arizona Senate for audit under subpoenas. And there's people that still cling to hope that they're going to somehow overturn the 2020 presidential election. Folks, you need to get a life. You need to move on. If your side, your party, your candidate didn't have the game plan working in 2020, silly stuff like this is not something to base your whole life around. Move on, and if you really do care about politics, then get organized. Go out and start knocking on doors and registering people for the Republican Party or the MAGA Party or whatever else you want to form to replace the country club elite Republicans who let this country down in 2020 with a go-along-to-get-along attitude with the Democrats currently running our country into the ground. This sort of thing here, this should not be the focus of your life. Go out, register to vote, get people motivated to vote on issues that affect you and affect your children's future and affect your wallet, because it's all one and the same. And if you simply allow evil to exist and you allow the Democratic Party to lie to you the way Joe Biden lied to you about the coronavirus in order to get into power, it's the same as if you didn't bother voting at all. So get engaged, get motivated. This channel is closed. I wish Joe Biden and his team the best of success in leading our country away from the pandemic and lockdowns that they themselves created. Have a good life and focus on your family. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Yesterday, I took my family to the local park. We happen to live in a state that is not run by Democrats. And I was struck by how no one at the park, except some senior citizens in motorized wheelchairs, were wearing masks. You saw people of all ethnicities, all groups, all creeds, ethnic groups, all orientations, enjoying themselves at the public park, smiling and happy and greeting each other. This was the America that I remember. And if you allow crass politicians to keep you locked down for the next year, the next 5 years, the next decade, you're nothing but sheep. Go out and live life, and don't let politicians pretend that they represent the science. Because as we learned with Joe Biden, he was lying about the silence every second of his campaign in 2020. If you want to follow the science, go out and live life, and don't let mindless federal bureaucrats or local Democrat bureaucrats run your life. I mean, that should be so simple, I shouldn't even have to say it. Which is the basis of the closing of my site. If you want to go back and see all the predictions I made about how Joe Biden would run things, this site will stay up, and you can peruse my videos from the 2020 presidential campaign, where I focus on the statements and policy positions of the candidates in the 2020 presidential campaign. That's what this site was created for. And don't let conspiracy theories and distractions rule your life. Get on with your life, and if you want real change in Washington, you have to take a stand and make a difference. Thank you.